Greetings, beautiful beings hurtling through space. It is I, Christina, here at Fit and Bendy in Los Angeles, and today we are talking about your diaphragm muscle and breathing. And this is a really important part of our larger discussion around the core muscles. If you have not watched my other core muscle video talking about what the core is in the soup can, please watch it. It is linked right there. Now, the diaphragm basically cuts you in half right here. It attaches to your ribs and to your spine, and it runs all the way across your body. And it is your primary breathing muscle. And the way the diaphragm works is when you inhale, that muscle contracts. So it is working on the inhale in order to drop down and pull air into your lungs. And then your exhale is that muscle just relaxing. And on the relaxation, it lifts back up and turns into a little dome shape right underneath your rib cage here. Now, the diaphragm is assisted by your rib cage. So the rib cage also does an important job for breathing. When you inhale, the rib cage expands and all the little muscles in between your ribs get a little bit longer. And if you were to tie a string around your rib cage, as you inhale, that string would have to get a little longer. And then when you exhale, those little muscles in the ribs contract slightly, and that circumference around the ribs gets a little bit smaller. So you can think of it as a circle that gets a little bigger and a circle that gets a little bit smaller. So the ribs do move when you breathe. And that relationship between the diaphragm and the rib cage is how we would ideally be doing our everyday breathing. Now, there is a thing that can happen where we start to use our neck and shoulders to breathe, which looks like this. Right? And this may look familiar to you. Now, it's really important to be able to do that, because if I really need to get oxygen into my lungs fast, I am running as fast as I can from a bear, and I need all the oxygen I can get. Yeah, I want to be able to use those muscles to lift and lower my upper body in order to elevate my rib cage and really get as much air into my lungs as possible. But this is not an optimal strategy for when we're just walking around in normal life. We don't want to constantly feel like these muscles need to be lifting us up in order to get enough air to just live normal life. And that can lead to a lot of tightness in the neck and the shoulders, and particularly in the mid upper back here where we breathe like that, right? And all of that can happen if the rib-diaphragm relationship is sleepy or suboptimal. And we're going to talk about some reasons why that might be and see if you can really start to feel those muscles and have a better relationship with them. Because here's the thing, of all of our most foundational keeping alive functions, heart rate, endocrine system, neurology, the only one we really have good direct control over is our breathing. And our breathing is our ticket into some of those deeper systems. So having a good relationship with your breathing, understand how you breathe, being able to breathe easily through deep ranges is super important for so many of our basic functions. So let's get into exploring it a little bit, shall we? We're going to start by trying to feel our diaphragm muscle and give it a little massage, which is hard to do because the top of the soup can is deep in there. And we can only really partially touch it, but we can kind of get in there a little bit and feel what's going on. This is not going to be fun if you have long nails. What you want to do is get in there and feel the base of your ribs. So here are my bottom ribs, right? And I'm running my fingers along them and kind of feeling where the ribs turn into like abdominal squish, right? And what I want to do is slump forward a little bit and try to actually get my fingers underneath my rib cage. Really hard to talk when I do that because it feels kind of weird and awful. But what you're feeling for is a muscle in there. So you're feeling for the resistance part. Like I can kind of feel like if I just push straight in, there's some muscle and there's some guts and there's my stomach and breakfast and stuff. And you want to think, instead of pushing straight in, of kind of just tucking your fingers up under the rib cage. And I tend to know that I'm getting my diaphragm because it becomes a little like hard to talk and breathe because I'm pushing on my diaphragm. And start by just feeling around. Now, this may be super tender for you, and just getting your fingers under there at all might feel like a real challenge, in which case just do this. Just touch a little bit and, take some breaths and see if you can feel the diaphragm moving and give it a gentle massage. If you get your fingers all the way under there and you're like, I'm cool, I can go a little deeper, what we're going to do is lean forward until our hands get to our thighs, and then use the pressure of the thighs to drive the fingers deeper underneath the rib cage. And take some breaths here. Very deep penetration. My fingers are about 3 inches into my rib cage here. Kind of see that from the side. And I'm trying to push straight up underneath the rib cage. And then I'm going to move my fingers around a little bit side to side. Take some breaths. Give that diaphragm a little bit of massage. And then come on out. Whew, usually that makes me sweat slightly. It's a little intense to do that. It will generally be intense. If it's like, excruciating, it's probably something you should be gently exploring a little bit at a time more often, just to start to have more of a relationship with that psoas and try to get it to release. So now you have a little bit of a sense of where the muscle is. We're going to move on to focusing on the way that it moves. And we're going to focus today on the exhale. The exhale, like I said, is the part of the breathing pattern where the diaphragm is supposed to relax and lift up. Now, when we think about our soup can of muscles, and we think about the fact that that soup can is all that's really holding up our rib cage, you can imagine that if the walls of the soup can and the base of the soup can aren't doing great, that diaphragm is going to have a really hard time relaxing, because it's going to need to stay somewhat engaged in order to preserve the integrity of the soup can. So what we're going to experiment with today is, how do we get the meat corset to pull in and take a little bit more of our weight, so that we can really allow the ribs to drop and the diaphragm to do that relaxing dome up into our rib cage, letting all of the air out of our lungs without feeling like we have to, kind of hold ourselves up here with the diaphragm and the neck and shoulders. So here's what we're going to start with. Feet planted on the floor in a seated position. I'm just going to put my hands here on my thighs, and I'm going to take a big breath in, nothing particular happening, and then blow that air out. And what I want to feel is that my spine is able to make a C-curved shape. My shoulders are relaxed down. My waist muscles are pulling in. And I'm trying to find this C curve here. And I'm trying to get all the air out. And you want to see if you can feel that meat corset pulling in as you do this. And then inhale. Come back up to sitting. Now, it can be really fun and entertaining as you do this to have a mirror or set up your camera over there and take a little video, because what you're looking for is, as you're doing this, can you get your spine to curve? It's a really good indication of how much you're able to use your meat corset muscles on your exhale instead of holding yourself with your shoulders, with your spine, or even with your lower back muscles. So if you look at my exhale, you can probably see that I'm pretty good at getting a release in the upper back, not so much in the lower back, because my lower soup can is a little sleepy. Let's do a few more of these. And this can be a great thing to do if you are feeling like you're having some back pain, if you're having difficulty getting full breaths, if you have neck pain. And one thing to look out for here, especially if you're someone with neck pain, is that it can be very tempting to lead with your neck here. So to drop the head and neck down, kind of squish your chin into your chest. And then it just sort of becomes more of a neck stretch. And we're taking it out of the soup can situation and putting it more up here. So, it's okay for the head to drop. You don't want to be holding it up in a lot of tension here. But we're really focusing primarily on this area, right around the rib cage and the waist. Let's do one more of those. Inhale And exhale. And now we can start to let the arms drop down. We can start to go a little bit deeper. So as I'm blowing out, I'm really pulling those meat corset muscles in. And I'm not hinging forward at the hips, right? I'm just trying to work on getting deeper into my C curve. And now I'm actually starting to get a little bit of a stretch in my lower back here as I come forward. And inhale back up. And feel how when you inhale, as soon as that diaphragm muscle turns on, it makes it easier to lift your body back up. And now as we release the diaphragm and it starts to relax, it becomes easier to just kind of come forward and let all of those muscles that hold us up relax just a little bit. Do a couple more of this slightly bigger shape. Inhale. Notice when you inhale, if you're wanting to pull yourself up with your neck and shoulders, right? See if you can keep them relaxed down. And last one, drop the rib cage. Roll down. And see if you can feel that deep relaxation through your spine, that engagement through the meat corset. Come on back up to sitting, and we're going to see if we can create the same dynamic now without quite so big a movement. So for this one, I like to put my hands just on the sort of area where the diaphragm and the base of the rib cage are. And I'm going to get a little bit more of a solid seat. And as you inhale, think about that expansion. So my ribs are coming forward. I can feel the stretch in those intercostal muscles. I can feel a little bit of work in that diaphragm now that I've built my awareness of it. I know where it is. And then on the exhale, the opposite is happening. I'm allowing the ribs to drop, and I'm feeling that meat corset pull in that way that we just created. And just go ahead and go back and forth between those two feelings a little bit. And if you're someone who thinks that you might be doing the neck breathing and the shoulder breathing, see if you can reach down. I don't really have an optimal chair. If you have a chair here, you can kind of get your hands underneath the seat of the chair. See if you can do your breathing while you gently pull down with your hands to the seat of the chair. So that means that as I inhale, I'm not going to be able to lift my shoulders up, right? And if you're really used to shoulder and neck breathing, it might feel like you can't even really get a full breath in. And then this is a good exercise to do a few times a day, to do a few breaths, to start to develop that awareness of what it feels like to breathe with the ribs, to feel that expansion in the front and that contraction in the back, right? And I also find that one of the benefits of doing this kind of breathing is it's very calming. When we breathe slowly like this and really feel the awareness that we can feel in our ribs and diaphragm, it sends a direct message into our body that things are cool, man. It helps to counteract that idea that we're always in fight or flight mode. Let's just do one more of these. Inhale. And exhale. I like to blow out from the mouth, especially when I'm really just trying to get the hang of this, to try to find that engagement through the meat corset. That blowing out of the mouth can really help you feel this pulling in, because the diaphragm can't push the air out of your lungs. It's relaxing. It's not engaging. The push comes from here, right? It comes from the other parts of the soup can, from the pelvic floor and the meat corset, lifting up to push it out of your mouth. All right. Shake it out a little bit here. Shake it out, shake it out. Just see how you feel. If you are someone who experiences tightness in their neck or back, hopefully this was somewhat useful. And I do want to talk a little bit now about the inhale, the contraction part of this. Now, one of the really good ways for driving the work to your diaphragm is to inhale through your nose. There is a different mechanics when you inhale through your nose than when you inhale through your mouth. If possible, you want to be inhaling through your nose through most of your day. Mouth breathing is not particularly good for you for a lot of reasons. And one of them is that it tends to lead to that neck and shoulder breathing. If you're someone who has a lot of congestion problems, getting that checked out could be really helpful for your neck and back pain. Just saying. So let's think about doing a nasal inhale. And again, put the hands on your ribs. And we want to feel that diaphragmatic engagement. So see if you can do a big sniff in through your nose and feel the work right here. And exhale through your mouth. Finding that nice, long, relaxing exhale. And inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Let's do that one more time. Feel that work and that relaxing. And again, we're going to do that with the hands holding on to the base of the chair. So if you are wanting to lift up, that's going to make that harder. So inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Now, this might start to feel like you're not getting as much of a breath as you're used to if you're really used to using these upper muscles. Again, don't worry about it. Only do a few breaths at a time and then take a normal breath so that you feel okay. But developing this skill, nasal inhale, exhale through your mouth to try to feel those muscles is something that we're going to take into all of the other core workouts that we're going to do, because this diaphragm rib breathing is part of the core. This is why in every modality, yoga, Pilates, people talk so much about how you have to coordinate your breath with your body movement. There is an actual reason for it, as how these core muscles work to support you, how it works to relax your body. So go ahead and practice those. It's a good thing to do periodically throughout your day, especially, like I said, if you do suffer from any of those symptoms of core dysfunction that I described in my earlier video. And we're going to now utilize those in a core workout in the next video in the series. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Happy bendings.